This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
Welcome to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we talk with successful marketing experts about ways to build and grow your marketing agency. My special guest today is an international keynote speaker, host of the Partnership Unpacked podcast, and head of strategic partnerships at Agorapulse. Because he's also focused on developing long-term relationships, his goal is always to help you achieve your business goals, whether through awareness, leads, revenue, or anything else. Every quarter, he executes successful virtual summits that feature dozens of top experts in the industry and attract thousands of attendees. One of his professional accomplishments that highlights his devotion to relationships is the mastermind, membership group, and book deal that he was blessed to be a part of with friends and colleagues, Stephanie Liu, Jen Herman, and Amanda Robinson. Join me in welcoming my friend and guest to the podcast, Mike Allton. Mike, thanks for joining us on Marketing Umbrella.
Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that, and I'm really looking forward to having another conversation with you.
Well, man, it's funny because the state I'm from is the state he's sitting in right now. So it's we certainly have got that in common. But what can you add to the bio and current state of affairs vocationally that I did not mention?
Well, one of the interesting things that I'm doing now more than ever is attending and speaking at in-person events. Something we didn't get to do very much of the last couple of years, but that really exploded last quarter. Excuse me. In-person events really just took off, both for me and obviously the rest of the industry. We were all locked up in multiple ways, and now everybody wants to travel. They want to be able to see each other again. So that's really created an opportunity for me both to espouse Agorapulse and kind of manage our presence. That's one of the things that just kind of has been folded into my responsibilities at Agorapulse. If we've got a booth, any kind of a presence at all in a marketing event of some kind, particularly this year, I'm in charge of that. And then of course, I'm also speaking on stages, talking about influencer marketing, partnership management, and so on.
Well, I mean, I know why they chose you. At first of it's just eye candy. I mean, they want you in the booth for eye candy, but after that is, I mean, you are such a gifted communicator, so, I mean, I can tell that just listening in other interviews and podcasts that you do on your own, but so tell me a little bit about Agorapulse. Just lay the foundation, assume we know nothing about it.
Yeah, so Agorapulse is a social media management solution. It's a dashboard. It's there for brands, for marketing agencies, where you're managing multiple social media profiles. So I'll be frank, it's not for someone who has a Twitter profile, maybe an Instagram or a Facebook page. If that's you only have one or two social profiles, keep managing them yourself, save your money. Agorapulse is for people who've got 5, 10, 15, 20 profiles that they're managing, again, themselves, or they're an agency and you're managing on behalf of clients. You need a tool at that point that can schedule it for you, that can help you monitor all the activity engagement that's happening across all those social profiles. And then the best part is the reports. Because again, if you're managing it for a big brand, that means you're probably reporting to the CMO or head of marketing, right? And you want to be able to prove to them the value of the work you're doing. Or again, if you're an agency, you've got clients, you definitely need to be able to prove to them, produce a report at the end of the month that says, hey, we took care of your marketing across all of your brand channels last month. Here's what we accomplished. So we connect to your Google Analytics and we're able to pull in the traffic data and we're able to show that, okay, last month, this is all the traffic, this is all the revenue that Twitter as a channel drove for your organization. And specifically a subset of that is, these are all the tweets that we created for you or videos across multiple channels that drove this much revenue. Our own activity drove this. In fact, Kevin was great last month. He drove $5,000 with these tweets, and we are actually able to track that and see that. That's something nobody else does. So that's one of the values that Agorapulse brings to the table.
I certainly will affirm that, because I was looking at just a quick video this afternoon that was comparing, just some independent, marketing, person out there that was saying, okay, I'm going to look at this versus, a couple of your competitors. And it was amazing because he highlighted in his review exactly what you just mentioned. And it goes far beyond the vanity metrics, just where you actually can drive down to usable and real-time data, and tie that to revenue. And it is really it's a unique platform. And so how did you end up at Agorapulse?
Oh my gosh. Well, it's funny because this ties into the relationship building that you mentioned in the introduction, how important relationships are to me, to people in my industry. And so we got to go back to 2016. That's when I was 5 years in on the social media hat. I'm blogging. I was working for a company called SiteSell at the time. I was the CMO there. And I wanted to do more in the marketing space. So I paid my own way to go to Social Media Marketing World in San Diego. It was thousands of dollars out of pocket to buy the ticket, to travel, and drove the family across country to stay in a hotel room. Didn't know a lot of people at that event. I knew a lot of people in the industry, and they'd been telling me for years, this is the event that I need to go to. So I paid my own way to get into that event. And I knew a couple of people, including Peg Fitzpatrick, who's a blogger out of New Hampshire. It was a dear friend of mine. One of the only people that I knew in person at this, and I'm a bit of an introvert. So going to an event with thousands of people all around you was very overwhelming to me. So I would follow Peg around like a little puppy. And I wanted to just go wherever Peg went because that was somebody that I knew I latched onto. So that event, you go to rooms where there are, talks happening, breakout sessions, and so on. And then in between those, they have networking opportunities and they've got luncheons. And back then, you would walk into the big networking plaza, and they had these long trundle tables filled with box lunches, and you'd grab a lunch and you'd sit down on a table. So again, following Peg. And Peg sees these empty tables, and one table in particular, she's looking across, and there's one guy sitting at this table. And back then, again, they had little flags at each table that would like denote what the topic was for that table. So if you wanted to sit down and talk to people about, at that time, Google Plus, or Facebook ads, or whatever the case might be, you could pick a table and pick a topic. And this particular table, like I said, one guy, and it was just an international topic, broad, whatever. So we sit down, and she knows him. That's why she picked this table. She introduces me. This is Emmerich Erno, my friend. He's the CEO. He's started this little app that you might want to take a look at. And at the time, I'd been talking about Hootsuite for years. But that relationship had soured, and why is like a whole nother topic and show perhaps. But I wasn't using Hootsuite at the time, and he started Agorapulse. And so he whipped it out on his phone and showed me. I was immediately entranced. It was gorgeous, way better than Hootsuite even then. This is many years ago. So he introduced me to Agorapulse. I loved it. He gave me an account. I started using it. And for the next couple of years, I talked about it. I became an affiliate and an ambassador. And then within a couple of years, Emmerich, the CEO, came to the conclusion, oh gosh, I've got Mike, I've got these other fantastic ambassadors that we're paying that weren't being managed, because he was running the ambassador program. And as the CEO, that meant it really wasn't being managed. Nothing against him, but as a CEO, he had lots of other things to do. So in late 2017, he and I started talking about what I could do if I came on board and ran that program for him. So by 2018, so almost 5 years ago to the day, he brought me on. Originally, my title was brand evangelist. We've since changed that and morphed the position so that it's broader and includes our brand relationships, our affiliates, as well as our influencers. But that's what happened. They brought me on in 2018 to manage the ambassadors that he'd been fostering over those past couple of years.
That is an amazing story. How you were a user of the product, or at least you were introduced to the product. Then you probably became a user of the product. Then you leveraged as an affiliate. Then and you said an ambassador. But I mean, it's interesting that just the path that was taken. So when he approached you, man, he had a track record on you. I mean, he had seen you work. I mean, there was probably no job interview there. It was just like, hey, I need you to do this. Just exactly. come and have a seat in the in the HQ. But I am interested to kind of hear your thoughts. And one question that came to mind this afternoon as I was thinking about this was, Social media channels have to be in kind of a constant state of evolving, because then you can grow stale very quickly and be just yesterday's news. But I'm curious how the scheduling apps, the analytics around that, kind of the support structure around social apps, is also evolving. So what's happening in Agorapulse world, on an evolutionary state?
Well, one of the things that we have always been aware of is that brands cannot rely on a single channel.
Mm-hmm.
Not if they want longevity, not if they want to achieve success. You can't just hang your hat on a Facebook page and say, this is where I'm at. Because first of all, that may not be where your audience is. That may not be the only place your audience is. And we've all seen what happens when brands are subject to a particular network. That network could go away. Yep. That's happened. We've seen Blab. We've seen many other Vine, networks, just Vine, just disappear overnight, literally. We've also seen where an individual may have their own profile, their brand page, whatever the case might be, turned off, shut down.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Right. Maybe it's something they did. Maybe it's a mistake. It doesn't matter if at the end of the day, you are relying on a single social profile and that social profile is banned or disabled for any reason whatsoever. Maybe you just get locked out because you let the wrong person have access to it and they changed the password.
Yep.
So that's the one thing we've seen, is that brands need to have access to multiple social profiles. And to my point that I just made, they need to have a layer of security and control between them and the channel, right? So that they have an app like Agorapulse that can manage it without having necessarily direct access to the Facebook page. I can give an intern access within my Agorapulse organization to be able to post or to be able to monitor without giving them direct access, right, to my Twitter or my Instagram. Yeah. Then we also have noticed that other channels continue to come up and evolve. TikTok is the latest example of a channel where at first it seemed like a fad, much like Clubhouse. Not to disparage Clubhouse, but look, the reality is Clubhouse was really interesting at the start of the pandemic when everybody craved conversation. They craved that, that group call kind of vibe. That social audio phenomenon is now behind us. It's not really going to come back and explode the way people thought it would from a long-term perspective. But TikTok is here to stay. TikTok, at least for now, is as viable a channel as Facebook or Instagram, or Twitter, or YouTube. So the Savvy Social dashboard is looking at that from a business perspective and saying, our clients need that, our marketing agencies need that, our enterprise agencies or enterprise clients need that. So we add that as a channel to the mix, just like Google My Business is now a very viable channel. And even though Google has this unfortunate storied history of giving us things and then taking them away a few years later, for now at least, Google My Business is a viable channel. So we add that. So those are the things that we look at as a platform, as a solution. What do our business customers need? What do we know that they're going to want to rely on for years, right? Presumably. So we add that, and we make sure that we have not just the ability to publish and schedule, but this other feature that we've had for years that personally is one of my favorite features is this concept of a queue, where you have a bucket that is assigned to a particular social profile, and you've got a schedule of time slots associated with that bucket. And then as the scheduler, as the individual manager of that particular brand, all I have to do is add things to the bucket. And the tool queues those things up and drips them out according to my schedule. So if I have an article that I found or an interview, I go back into your podcast history and I say, oh, wow, interview number 30 was perfect for my audience and I want to share it. I don't have to study my calendar and try to figure out when the perfect time to schedule that might be, when I'm not going to conflict with something else that might be going out. If I've got a category queue just for curated content, just for interviews, or just for something on a particular topic, and then I find something that fits that category, I just add it to the queue. And I let the queue figure out when's the next time to schedule that out.
That
Love
makes
using that
perfect
feature.
sense. I mean those features. It's interesting because I just saw this week that LinkedIn, added a feature where you can schedule, a post. You can set a time date frame on it. But it's interesting that when you're describing the platform, I think it's easy for especially layperson like myself. That's not a marketing expert would say, okay, you built kind of a support structure for social, all the things that people need to do to be successful as far as the mechanics and the timing. But is there also an element where you are showing people how to be more effective using social channels as well? Is there an Agorapulse learning, Agorapulse Academy, that says, here's how to do good content, here's how to leverage this social for this purpose, this social channel for this purpose? Has that been built out, or is that part of the greater family of Agorapulse?
There is an Agorapulse Academy, but it's not for that purpose. The Agorapulse Academy is literally how to use Agorapulse,
Yeah,
with the idea
right.
being your social media manager or your account rep at an agency goes to the academy, gets certification,
Right.
actual certified
Like
as an
HubSpot,
Agorapulse user,
whatever. Yeah.
and then they know how to use the tool, just like
Mhm.
there might be a SEMrush certification kind of a deal.
Right.
But what we also have is our Social Media Pulse community.
Mm-hmm.
That community is devoted to helping tens of thousands of social media managers around the world understand how to use social media in an ideal way. And this is where you'll find the kind of content that you were just asking about. We have actual, how do I want to put this, structured training, not just like an interview like this, which is great, but it's going to be really hard for you to suss out of an interview, a series of interviews, a specific,
For sure.
curriculum.
Right.
We hired a collegiate professor to come in and organize our curriculum and build that structured training so that if you want to learn Facebook, or if you want to have a member of your staff learn Facebook and know the best practices and the ins and outs of really developing a strong presence on that particular platform, we've got that training.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the community that will help you really keep on top of the trends. And then there's job placements and so on. So that's where I send people if they really want to know the best practices, if they want to know how to best use Agorapulse on top of everything they really should know about each particular channel that they're trying to excel at.
That is really interesting approach, and I think it's almost like each one teach one. The whole idea, teach what you learn type thing, and share with the community. But I mean, I do like the approach, and I applaud the fact that you guys are not trying to be all things to all people. Because then you're like a master of none. If you're trying to do too much. But it's when looking at this competitive space and this ever changing space, if you could point to one thing that would be what is the USP or the competitive advantage of Agorapulse in the space?
It's definitely the ROI feature. It's a patented innovation. Nobody else is doing that. And I'll tell you what's different. There are many tools on the market that support publishing of content to the social channels. And I definitely recommend that everybody try to use a tool of some kind, if for no other reason than to limit the amount of time that you personally have to spend on each one of those platforms and give yourself that buffer from having to be in the feed and being distracted by all that. But what Agorapulse does is it makes sure that every single link that is shared is automatically shortened and tracked. Because we did the research and we found that 98% of the links that were being shared to social media were not being tracked. We're posting to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to Twitter, even to Pinterest and other kinds of platforms. We're sharing links, but it's just what we call a naked link. It's a direct URL to a product, an article, a webinar, whatever the case might be. And it's not tracked, which means we don't know if anybody clicked on that link. If we just rely on Google Analytics says, hey, you got 10,000 visits from Facebook last month. And we're like, yay, great. Whose links? Where did those come from? Right. We have no idea, because that all that data gets aggregated into a single bucket. It all came in through social media. It was all Facebook. Now, when you begin to track your links, now you can separate. Here's what everybody else shared to Facebook. or Twitter, right? People are tweeting links to our content. Great, that's wonderful. But what did our team do specifically? Well, that traffic is now tracked, and it's tracked whether they're scheduling a post and they've decided, okay, next month we're going to do a campaign that's all about this aspect of our business, and we're going to talk to this specific audience, and these are all the articles that we're going to share. Great. But what about when someone goes into the comments of one of our posts and says, hey, do you have this solution to this problem? Or they send us a direct message and they say, hey, Kevin, I saw that you were talking about ROI. Do you have anything for me? I'm in the nonprofit sector and I really would love to work with my, nonprofit clients. Do you have anything for me along those lines? And you're like, yeah, absolutely I do. Here's a link to our latest white paper. If you're using Agorapulse and you're monitoring all of your posts for comments and all the direct messages that come in through Facebook, through Twitter, through Instagram, wherever the case might be, and you're sharing links, they're all automatically shortened and tracked. We're automatically adding UTM parameters from campaign, source, and medium down to an individual post ID that's unique to that very specific link. And you can tweak those if you want, or you can have a default set of UTM parameters. You don't have to understand UTMs. You don't have to understand Google Analytics. You can just make sure it's set up right, make sure you've gone into your Google Analytics in the initial setup phase, or you've got someone on your team that went and decided, these are our goals. These are the things that are important to us, whether they're sales, signups, email subscriptions, whatever's important to you about your website. You just tell Google Analytics, this is important. This is what it's worth to us. If it's a sale, great. What's the dollar amount? If it's a contact lead, somebody is reaching out because they want a phone call. Okay. What's that worth to your business? You just tell Google Analytics. Then we connect to Google Analytics and we pull in all that data, and we're able to say, great, out of all of your Twitter activity last month, your website generated $5,000 worth of activity. We just saw this. It was so interesting. Our CEO was sharing this morning that somebody signed up for Agorapulse earlier this month. So they've not been a customer for less than a month, but they've connected their social profiles, they connected to Google Analytics, and we saw that their Twitter profile, I'll back up. We saw that out of all their social channels, they generated, I think it was $50,000 worth of revenue from Twitter. And then there's a toggle that you can do with inside of Agorapulse's reports that'll show, here's all of your ROI, and here's exactly what you did. We call it your social ROI. Those are the links that you specifically shared. And when they toggle that on, they could see that on the night of the Georgia collegiate football championship game, they must have been sharing some links to collegiate gear or something like that. But they shared a couple of tweets that night, and it was like those tweets that drove thousands of dollars of revenue because they just went gangbusters that particular time. They're able to see that.
And that's without tagging it to the college football. I mean, was there a hashtag, UGA football or whatever on top of that?
Yeah, there might have been
just the keywords that were catching that. So
that would have been smart. Yeah. So they're able to, go back to their boss and say, hey, look, we earned our keep that night. We drove this much revenue for the company off of that channel, that's what stood out to us, was that we don't typically see Twitter as a really profitable channel, but it was for that particular client.
It seems like that the differentiator is that you're like parsing the granularity out of just data buckets. It's almost like micro A/B testing, on a just on a consistent, continuous basis. And I could see that is truly an added value. It's not just a utility anymore. It's just not a utilitarian functionary application. It actually has, measurable ROI. It's not like, we pay to somebody to clean our building, because it needs to be done.
As a marketing agency,
schedule posts,
as a marketing agency, you can now generate a report for your clients that says, we gained this many followers. Sure, we got this much engagement, and our tweets and our social posts got this much visibility. but it also drove this much traffic and this much revenue.
Mm.
So now there's no question about the value that we were presenting. When it was just engagement, the client could always come back to you and say, oh, yeah, but what's that worth to me?
Yep.
Really? Yeah, you got this many views and this many impressions last month, but what was that really worth to me? How much business did it actually drive? And we couldn't answer that question, but now we can.
That you actually answered my next question, because I was going to have you, and you can still add to this, but just really drive home the value of using the tool as a marketing agency owner, as a from a it is, you mentioned the whole idea of I can actually show you the impact, the financial impact of this. Is there anything else that other than just, it's got a beautiful user interface, it works, what else is kind of interesting and new, from a feature standpoint at Agorapulse that really would be attractive to me as a marketing agency owner?
Well, the other thing that we usually hang our head on is the fact that we've got the #1 rated support in the industry. And that's not just our internal customers. It's not us saying that. That's G2, that's Capterra. So what that tells a marketing agency, what that tells an enterprise client is that when something goes wrong, and we all know things go wrong, it will happen on our end, on the tools end, on the social networks end. There's multiple points of potential failure there. When there is a problem of any kind, I at least know I can rely on Agorapulse to get back to me quickly, to take care of me, to help me with empathy, understand here's what the issue is. It was on our end, it was the network, it was user error, whatever the case might be, and we'll get that fixed, we'll get that sorted out.
Yeah. I encourage our listeners to look Mike up on LinkedIn and follow him, because he posts some really interesting stuff, from time to time, and it's been fun to kind of follow from afar, the ideas that it's interesting, because you post some of these are certainly your own unique ideas and personal ideas, but then you also are really good at sharing insights that are kind of industry specific. But I mean, I could continue to ask you questions about Agorapulse and just the whole space, but I want to shift right now, and I really want to honor your time as well. But I'm going to shift into kind of the rapid fire, and you're going to listen to these questions. You're going to go, what in the world? What's this disparate questions you're just throwing out? I mean, it's like you just picked this off the internet. But there's a method to the madness behind these questions, and I really I love the responses, but just try to keep them short, just impulsive answers, really quick, short, impulsive answers. Did you get along with your parents growing up?
Mostly.
That is 98% of the responses. Is people stop, they take a breath, they kind of look off, they go, yeah, most of the time. Or they go, are mom and dad gonna listen? Yeah, exactly, yeah, right, to this. So yes. Do you have siblings?
Yes. I have a younger sister.
Do you have a pet currently?
Yes.
Which is?
I have 2 cats, which I consider mine. And then we have 2 dogs, which I consider my kids and my wife's pets. In fact, one puppy we've had her for 3 weeks, and she's here in the office with me now.
She's been very quiet. What a great dog.
Yeah, she's sleeping because she's really young.
Kids?
2 kids.
2 kids.
11 and 8.
Okay,
11 and 8. 2 girls.
2 girls, 11 and 8. So what time do you wake up in the morning?
I get up at 5:30 a.m. every day.
And you go to bed at what time?
11:30.
Your ideal vacation spot?
Oh my. I would say a beach house. Secluded.
Anywhere. Secluded beach house.
Yeah.
North, south, east, west, Pacific, Atlantic?
Bali. No preference there. In fact, I don't even mind if it's like, the Pacific Northwest or the Atlantic Northeast. Yeah, the weather isn't important. It's just, the idea of, being close to the water. And I don't even like sand, but I like that secluded beach. I think one of our best vacations was a secluded beach house on the west coast of Florida one year.
So funny. I just spent the week between Christmas and New Year's on the Outer Banks of North Carolina in a beach house, sitting on a deck, freezing to death, just watching the waves. I don't like sand either. So brother, I feel you. I feel at a deep level. So how are you a person of faith?
Yes. Christian.
So how does that affect how you conduct business? How you walk that out?
Oh gosh, it's definitely an underlayer to how I approach relationships, how I approach business and personal relationships, so personal and professional. Um, yeah, it's my faith has guided the decision making process and just the way that I treat other people and expect to be treated in return.
One last question. There's one thing you could change about the business climate today. What would it be?
Oh gosh, I would change how people are obsessing over the news and they're allowing it to drive their business decisions out of fear.
Wow. That is such an insightful point, because I think you're exactly right. And I see it every day. See it every day. So one thing that we haven't touched on that you just would like to wrap a nice bow around this conversation today. Anything that we've touched on, anything that we haven't, but just close us out with a good thought for our listeners, something that you think would be germane to their station in life.
Oh, well, we've used the word relationships multiple times in this conversation. We've only been talking for 33 minutes. And if that doesn't explain just how important relationships are to me, I don't know what else will. And I use this word and I teach this word when I'm talking to other businesses about influencers. So there's one point that I want to make. It's that if you're thinking about, or if you already work with influencers, particularly in the B2B space, you need to understand how important it is to develop relationships with those individual influencers in order to achieve success. If you want to use influencer marketing, you should not be thinking about paying somebody to share some tweets, paying them to send out an email. You should be looking at, how do I develop a relationship with this set of people who are influential in my target industry? How do I build relationships with them so that months, perhaps even years down the road, the opportunity might come up to work on something together, to collaborate? Maybe it's a paid campaign, maybe it's something else entirely. We don't know.
Yeah.
But if we go into these with relationships in mind, wonderful things can happen down the road.
One thing that I can add to that, to augment what you just said, is that not only is it for the current state of things, and you talked about future, it also is so important if issues come up that you need to deal with. You're not transactional, you are relational in how you've developed that that's why the word relationship, that you develop. But Mike, that what a way to wrap us up today. So grateful you take the time and just chatting with us on the Marketing Umbrella podcast. And it's really good to reconnect and really hear kind of even your own evolution within the marketing space, and hear some of the things that you touched on today that you might not have even said 2 years ago or 3 years ago, that are just so insightful and so helpful to our listeners that are trying to really create and grow their agencies. But once again, we want to thank you for just listening to another episode of the Marketing Umbrella podcast, where we chat with marketing experts providing insights to help agency owners scale and grow their business. Please connect with our founder of Umbrella, Itamar Shafir, at umbrellaus.com. Mike, thank you again, buddy. Have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.